Good evening y bienvenidos to Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Alex Hernandez of Noticias Univision Chicago, which airs every weekday morning at 5 and 6. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, 11 men wrongfully convicted of murder due to police misconduct file a lawsuit against the city. Hundreds of thousands of people in the state who get health care through Medicaid are at risk of losing their coverage. Some spirited fun is on its way for Cinco de Mayo weekend. Hear about 2 upcoming festivals where you can celebrate as well.
Put more energy into serving this community as opposed to arguing.
And how Woodlawn residents are helping migrants in their community following tension earlier this year. All that coming up, but our first story tonight, 11 men wrongfully convicted for murder seek justice. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
For nearly 2 decades, Chicago police detective Reynaldo Guevara was an infamous presence on the city's northwest side. More than 50 people have accused Guevara of framing them for murders, coercing false confessions, and other misconduct from the 1980s to the early 2000s. So far, 39 of those have had their convictions thrown out. Last month, 11 wrongfully convicted men filed a new lawsuit against Guevara, the city of Chicago, and other officers. Today, Guevara is in his 70s, retired, and living out of state. Joining us now are 3 men who were wrongfully convicted due to Guevara in the early 1990s. They are Jack Rivera, who was exonerated in 2011, Demetrius Johnson, who was exonerated in 2019, and Johnny Flores, who was exonerated in 2022. Also joining us is Hanin Swaminathan, a partner at the Chicago-based civil rights law firm, Lovey & Lovey. I want to welcome all of you gentlemen. Thank you for being here, but I want to start with you, Johnny. You're one of the 11 men who filed this new lawsuit against the city. What is your hope for this lawsuit?
That this never happens again, that the system is corrected to where it's more transparent and no other citizen has to go through this.
Definitely. Demetrius, I'm assuming your hope is about the same. You spent 20 years in prison for a crime you didn't commit. Why is it important for people to know your story?
It's important because I was grabbed at the juvenile when he kidnapped me, basically. And it's important because I remember being a cry in the dark in the cell because of the way he was allowed to use his power. I just remember those days being a cry in the dark in the cell, wondering why and how could this happen, knowing that I was innocent. So I just know that there could be someone else that's going through that same thing right now, because he's not the first person that did something like this. So we have to bring light to situations like this. I think it's very important.
How old were you again?
15 years old.
15 years old.
Yes.
Jack Rivera, you actually won your lawsuit, right, against Guevara and other officers of burying evidence and pressuring witnesses into false identifications in 2018. What did that help you? How did that help you move forward?
Well, it helped me establish myself, a living. I had 3 kids at the time during my incarceration who were 5, 7, and 6 months old. Now that they're grown, I could also provide for them, give to them what they missed out on. I can't give them back me, per se, all those years that they missed out on, but I can help them financially.
What was the toughest part for you after coming out of jail?
The new technology. New technology, how everything changed. It was really amazing, and it was, it was just amazing, just how things have changed, because you're stuck like in a time zone.
Right.
When you go into the prison system, you come out and how things change, but you're expecting things to be the same when you went in. But and it was just good. Glad to see my kids though.
Getting used to everything, definitely.
Yes, sir.
I mean, what's next? What are the next steps in this lawsuit?
Yeah.
So for each of these men, they're only here today because they were able to convince the criminal justice system that it had made a mistake and that they needed to be exonerated. And so their convictions were thrown out. But the next steps for these guys is they've got to go get a certificate of innocence to show that this wasn't just some mistake that was made. It wasn't an accident. It was because these men were truly innocent. They didn't come home based on a technicality. Mr. Rivera and Mr. Johnson, they both have their certificates of innocence, and Mr. Flores will have his very soon.
Okay, what happens if, let's say, he doesn't get it, or what are the ramifications of him not getting it?
Yeah, the certificate of innocence is a piece of paper. To you and I, it doesn't really change anything about their legal claims or their ability to come home or the fact that their conviction should have never happened. But it's important to these men because it's an opportunity to say the state admits. It's the closest the state will ever come to admitting that it did something wrong, and it says that, and it's the closest they'll come to saying, I'm sorry. The civil rights lawsuit that these men filed is their opportunity to say, on offense, wait a minute, I'm no longer the defendant. I'm the person who gets to prove what these officers did, like Ray Guevara, what they did to me to frame me for this crime.
Johnny, what was the impact of your incarceration for your family?
Devastating, hardship, travel. They send you to different prisons throughout the state, further away from where you live. Cost of phone calls. They had an outrageous phone system that I challenged. Consolidated communications, I was able to abolish that. It was discriminatory. They were paying outrageous surplus charges, and I was able to expose that.
Yeah. Your family to
My
call
family, yeah, the expenses. I mean, the travel expenses and the phone expenses. It's just the hardship. The family is just very hard.
And what was the hardest part for you coming out of jail?
Knowing that some of my loved ones had passed while I was in there, and I would never see their eyes again or their smile. So that was pretty devastating.
I can only imagine. Demetrius, how was your experience, or how has your experience shaped actually, your view of the justice system?
Since I was grabbed as a juvenile and I had to become a man in there, I saw a lot, and it makes me view things as, it's a catch to it. It seems like it was systematic when I went through it. So after experiencing that, I could see it just didn't happen because of one person. It took more than one person to make that system work against me and other people like me. So my view of it is, I appreciate the people like Anand doing the work he's doing to bring justice to the situation, and people like you doing what you're doing to bring light to the situation. And like these two gentlemen up here with me, we're able to expose this situation like we're supposed to and speak on it so that everyone can know that this situation is not the first and it happened before, and there's it's a very strong reason that we need to speak on it because like this man was saying, we lose a lot. Yeah. It's very traumatizing. In there during the time and coming out, it's like doing a whole nother sentence because you're like in a box. Can't spread your wings still, even after you're out of prison because of it.
Yeah. Jack, what are you doing now to help other wrongfully convicted people?
I'm doing several things. I accept phone calls from the prison gentlemen in the prison system to help them out. I go to clemency hearings. I go to court to support. When any of the law firms go to represent somebody in the court system, we go to support them. I picked up as well Innocent Demand Justice. It's a committee formed to fight the Guevara cases. But since then, we're helping anybody who's been wrongfully convicted other than Guevara.
Definitely. Anin, moving with you, the Guevara cases continues to cost the city millions in dollars in lawsuits, as you know. Why is it important for the city to reckon with the actions of the Detective Guevara?
I mean, there can be no accountability, there can be no change unless there's acceptance first. And there's got to be an acceptance that something wrong was done here. Everybody in the criminal justice system, the Illinois courts, the appellate courts, the state's attorney's office have all acknowledged that Detective Guevara is a bad man and he did some very bad things and he wrongfully convicted a lot of people. The only person who still fights that and fights every one of these men when they file their lawsuits is the city of Chicago. And if the city of Chicago will not admit that this misconduct occurred, then how is it ever going to ensure that it doesn't happen again?
Okay. Johnny, what would you say to Detective Guevara if you could look him in the face?
I don't know why you chose me. I really don't know why you chose me. I would like to know why you chose me to put a murder that I know nothing about. Something had to, somebody or something had to, inspired him or to single me out. I would like to know that. That's what I would like to know. Answer that.
Demetrius, same question.
That's a powerful question because I went through so much. To me, he's like the devil advocate. That's a difficult question. I don't know what I would say to him.
Right. And Jack, we'll end with the same question.
I would definitely tell him I forgive him. Part of my faith is to forgive others who had wronged me. But also I'd like to tell him that just don't carry that Bible that he carries around with him every time he goes to court. Start reading it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our thanks to Jack Rivera, Demetrius Johnson, Johnny Flores, and Anand Swaminathan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, more than 7,000 migrants have arrived in Chicago via buses and planes now since late August, sent by Texas governor after arriving at the border from countries like Venezuela and Peru. And it's been almost 3 months since some of those migrants were moved into Shutter Wadsworth Elementary School in the Woodlawn community following objection from some nearby residents. Others have joined forces to help integrate their new neighbors into the community by building cultural bridges. Reporter Joanna Hernandez spent time in Woodlawn this week where she met a pastor with a Concord Missionary Baptist Church who calls it a home away from home center. Here's Joanna.
Mall. That's where you go shopping para comprar cosas. Mall.
It started as an idea.
Across the street.
Senior Pastor Kenneth Phelps says he was called to action.
We literally just camped outside, passed out flyers, and we to people coming out. Yeah, and just said, hey, listen, we are having a bilingual service on this day, and we would love to have you.
And people came. A coalition of religious leaders, neighbors, and organizations joined together to create Chicago for All.
Our initiative is to offer a space of peace, hope, right? And do what we can. We do what we can with what we have.
And I spell my name.
Changing the narrative is what Pastor Phelps hopes will happen as community members meet the newcomers integrating into the neighborhood.
I invite the community
to come in
and to volunteer.
Yes,
right?
Come and see.
More than 100 asylum seekers have moved into the former Wadsworth Elementary School building, despite backlash from some residents over what they call a lack of transparency from the city and frustrations over the lack of services for community residents. These pastors have a vision to move forward.
We just elected to, put more energy into serving this community as opposed to arguing with protesters.
¿Y dónde está? Where is the fire station?
Ronald Cortez is one of the migrants who is taking free English classes inside Concord Missionary Baptist Church.
Me gusta que me están ayudando a aprender lo que es inglés. Es un idioma que se me hace a mí difícil aprender porque desde el colegio no he aprendido mucho, no le he tomado mucha importancia y cuando acordé, mira, ahorita estoy acá en Estados Unidos, en un país donde se habla solo ese idioma.
Cortez made the long journey from Peru. He's far from home, but says he is grateful as he looks forward to learning more about the neighborhood.
Falta solo conocer a la persona y que si a ellos les gustaría conocernos a nosotros, que lleguen, visiten el lugar y que hablen con nosotros también y para que vean que no somos malas personas.
Along with ESL classes, Street Soccer USA also got on board.
Soccer and every kind of sport brings everyone together. And so having that just little piece that they can have, that they can play together, just get away from this stress of, what they're dealing with.
Every Sunday from 2 to 4, anyone from the city can come and play soccer.
The Venezuelan South American community is just so vibrant and has so much culture, and I think that, if we can mix that with a lot of the African American communities here and all the other Spanish communities here, it would be great just to see how we can mesh together.
Meshing cultures is a mission Pastor Phelps and Pastor Cruz say they've been working on for years. As the initiative grows, Pastor Phelps is raising funds to renovate the church's kitchen to give people an opportunity to cook their native food.
We've learned is that in our group there's like some really talented. We got some cooks.
Yeah, we do.
You know, we got cooks, we got barbers, we got lawyers, we got doctors.
And he's calling out his community to open their hearts.
I want to say to my community to get involved and to get a chance to know your neighbors and also to help us.
For Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, I'm Joanna Hernandez.
If you're interested in donating, we're told Chicago for All is in need of sneakers for those playing sports. People can drop off donations at Concord Missionary Baptist Church. Let's continue. People who receive health care through Medicaid are at risk of losing coverage. That's because emergency measures designed to ensure people didn't lose their health care during the COVID-19 pandemic are now being phased out. That puts nearly 700,000 people in Illinois at risk of losing coverage. And a federal report finds that 4.6 million Latinos across the U.S. are likely to lose Medicaid, despite many still being eligible. The reason? Because of issues navigating the renewal process. Joining us now with more are Dr. Geraldine Luna, Medical Director for the Chicago Department of Public Health, Luvia Quiñones, Senior Director of Health Policy at the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, and Israel Rocha, CEO of Cook County Health. Thank you all for joining us today. But I want to start with you, Dr. Luna. Let's offer some context here. What happened during the pandemic with Medicaid, and why are we seeing changes now?
Exactly. Alex, it's important for people to know that during these past 3 years, Medicaid included flexibility and extensions that it would normally not do, just to ensure that a huge population, or the majority, would be covered during the pandemic. And by that, we're meaning that there was like the criteria for SNAP, for example, were the ones used for folks to be able to be covered by benefits. That's ending now because we're at the end of the transition or transitioning out of the emergency for the public health related to COVID-19. So it's important for individuals to understand that we're going back to the old standards of redetermination, recertification of Medicaid.
And that again, the date is?
It's May 11th. It's right around the corner.
Right around the corner,
yes.
Really. Luvia, when we say Medicaid, what can that include? Because there are several programs that people might not even realize that fall under Medicaid.
Yes, so I mean, one of the things that we've been trying to tell people, educate and inform them is if they have the All Kids program, which includes children under 19, if they're under, if they just had a baby, so under the Moms and Babies program, if they're under one of the new Medicaid programs for health immigrant seniors or health immigrant adults, which includes undocumented adults under a certain age. Those are just some of the many programs that all fall under Medicaid. And again, as Dr. Luna just mentioned, they're all going to have to recertify at some time after May.
How will the process of checking for Medicaid eligibility work?
So it's going to be pretty much the same for everyone. For some people, depending on their source of income, it may be automatic, so they're not going to have to do anything. For people that work, you could say a traditional job, they're going to have to fill out a form. The form is going to come to their house. So it's very important that right now, if a person has changed their address in the last 3 years, they report that to the state, to the Medicaid agency, to make sure that this notice gets to the right house.
Israel, how can people prepare as eligibility checks for Medicaid resume?
Sure. So I would say that first and foremost, the number one thing is to contact the state and make sure that your address is updated. As Luvia said, we've had a lot of changes. It's been 3 years. And in those 3 years, people may have moved. They have made address changes or had changes in their family. And so it's really important that you go to the state. And so there's a number, 800-843-6154, where they can call. And I'm pretty sure we can put online the electronic areas where they could be able to go to update your information. What's important to note is that there's not a cliff. So it's not going to be that everyone's going to get notified in the next few weeks. It's going to be 1/12 of the eligible population. And so every month, a new group of individuals will be getting it. You're going to get it about 60 days before, and we encourage everyone to have a lookup. But what you can do right now is make sure your address is updated, check your mail, make sure that you have the information, and if you have any questions, reach out to the state. And we also have a hotline at Cook County Health, 312-864-2224. or you can just come in. At any point, come to any of our Cook County Health locations. We have financial counselors who are willing and able to help you. And that's also important. If you lose coverage, we have financial counselors here to help you.
Speaking of, on what grounds might someone lose coverage?
Well, you know, there's about 1 million people more that are on Medicaid than have been at the start of the pandemic. We had about 2.9 million. We're now at about 3.9 million. So there's about 1 million people who have additional coverage since we suspended redetermination. There is estimates that say anywhere between 300,000 to 700,000 of that million may lose coverage, and you usually lose it if you now earn more as you've gotten new jobs or you have new services, or there's been changes in your family or your household that may make you ineligible. But there's options.
Dr. Luna, what might happen now to people who no longer qualify for Medicaid?
Well, there is a why we're working with all these allies around the city, and there's state and federal funded new programs to come to rescue. Alex, we're trying to make a point and take an advantage, if there's any advantage to take, of this redetermination to bring people to medical homes. So now we have a wide variety for undocumented, for people that usually wouldn't qualify, but now we understand the need. And we have always, but more than ever, with this pandemic and the devastation, we understand the importance of family being covered for all aspects of health.
Speaking of family, families have kids. Luvia, let's talk a little bit about that. What should parents with kids who are covered under Medicaid actually know if they're worried about losing those benefits for their kids?
I think similar for other people that are on Medicaid, it's very important that, again, if they've changed their address in the last 3 years, that they update their address. As Mr. Rocha mentioned, they could call the state, which again, the phone number is 800-843-6154. They could also go online and update their address. But again, they should not be worried. If their income has been similar, as well as their household size, the children should stay covered. As Dr. Luna mentioned, there are other options in case the income has changed. We have CareLink program at Cook County Health. We also have different community clinics throughout the state. So there may be other options in case they end up having to disenroll. But again, the most important thing is for these families to make sure that their address is updated.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much to all of you. Our thanks again to Dr. Geraldine Luna, Luvia as well, Quiñones, and Israel Rocha. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for more information on additional resources, visit our website, wttw.com/news. Cinco de Mayo is just around the corner, 1 week away actually, and there's plenty to do in Chicago to celebrate. Here's more about 2 events happening next week: Mexico Fest at Navy Pier and the Latino Spirits Festival in Logan Square.
So next weekend, Navy Pier is happy to partner with the General Consulate of Mexico here in Chicago, as well as the government of Jalisco, Mexico, to host Mexico Fest, Friday, May 5th through Sunday, May 7th here at Navy Pier. So what we could expect is a market with over 30 vendors, all Mexican in nature, done in partnership with people from the community, as well as dancing, music. Certainly we'll have mariachi music, as well as children's workshops, all of it free of charge from Friday through next Sunday. I think from our vantage point, we always value ourselves in providing entertaining experiences, but also genuine, authentic cultural experiences. And we have a history of our global connections where we partner with cultural organizations from across the city to make sure that they're not just entertaining and fun, but also very authentic in general. And that's what the partnership with the General Consulate of Mexico in Chicago allows us to do.
A Latino Spirits Festival. It actually is a kind of a first event of its kind here in Chicago, really celebrating our flavors, our cultures, things that actually come from our own countries that we appreciate, that we're really familiar with, whether it's a rum, a tequila, a pisco. When you walk in, you're going to get a sampling cup, and that sampling cup will enable you to just get a quick sample from all the vendors that will be present at the event on May 6th. We are a robust city with many flavors, great restaurants, but I want people to come here and celebrate our culture, our talent, our mixologists. We have local vendors here that are producing their own rums, their own tequilas, and their own mezcales that are based right here in Chicago. The purpose here is to really celebrate our own and really recognize the true talent that we have as Latinos in any industry here in Chicago.
Mexico Fest is at Navy Pier from May 5th to 7th, and Latino Spirits Festival takes place on May 6th on the Logan Square Auditorium. You'll find more on both of these events on our website. And before we go, we have a note for you. Also starting on Cinco de Mayo, you'll be able to watch Chicago Tonight Latino Voices here on WTTW and streaming live at 5:30 p.m. That's in addition to our 6 o'clock broadcast on Saturdays. So mark your calendars and catch us next Friday, May 5th at 5:30 p.m. We'll all be waiting for you. That's going to be our show for this week. And don't forget also to tune in to Noticias Univision Chicago every weekday morning at 5 and 6. I'll be waiting for you. And we leave you now with scenes from the Little Village Academy, who received some welcome news this week. They won $60,000 from the CIA's Mission Possible contest to create a makerspace at their school. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, I'm Alex Hernandez. Muy buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm dedicated to preserving the dignity and rights of all individuals.